Alright, welcome back to the Diver Guy channel, and today we're talking about entries. This is a long-awaited video, and I'm sorry it's taking so long, but we're finally here. We're going to work on our entries today because it's the last thing that the judges see, and it's arguably or probably is the most important thing, even though I hate to admit it. There are some really good resources out there if you want to watch other videos about entries. They won't explain it quite as much, but most professional level diving videos from competitions around the world will have underwater cameras. Use that to your advantage and study it when you're watching these diving videos. Any competition, basically. The Olympics, any world championships, even things like the European championships, they're gonna have underwater shoots. So pay attention to that stuff. Also, there's an awesome video on Vox that explains the underwater diving or how to make low splash and what divers do underwater. As you know, it's a pike save, it's a knee save, but they kind of talk about the physics in more layman's terms, and it's got like 15 million views on YouTube, so go check that out as well. Alright, that's enough said. If you want any diving tips from me directly, you can send me your videos. The link will be in the description, and let's get started. So this video, we're going to actually go a little bit backwards. What we usually do is talk about the beginner and then go all the way up to an expert. But today, I really want to go over the experts first. I want you to see what perfect is or close to it, and then we can talk about some common mistakes that people make, and then we'll wrap up. So let's start right here with this front 4.5 pike off 10 meter. Obviously, he crushes the entry. And what I want to talk about with this video in particular is what you do before you hit the water that is really going to set you up for the best entry possible. Especially off of 10 meter, you're going to notice that your arms break down or your elbows bend once you hit the water because you're hitting it with so much force. And that's partially just tricep strength. That's also genetics and how double jointed your elbows are. The more you can extend that elbow, the more locked in place it can be. But if you weren't blessed with the double jointed elbows, you're going to have to work extra hard. You're going to have to really feel the squeeze through your triceps, because you can see with him, right before he hits the water, he grabs his hands, then he punches up. He's really forcefully extending his triceps and his elbows to get the best entry he can possibly get. Another thing I want to mention is look how airtight he is around his head. His shoulders are shrugged up, or his upper arms are around his head perfectly, that you can't see any space between his arms and his head. That's airtight right there. And that's going to be super important as we move forward, because how much air you bring down with you is one of the biggest factors in creating a big or small splash. Obviously squeezing, everybody says squeeze, but what does that even mean? It means doing this. It means before you hit the water, extending your elbows forcefully, really punching up for the water, and then getting airtight around his head, his ears, and his neck. You can't see any space. It's airtight. All right, let's talk about the next phase of this. So you're already tight going in the water. You also need to be engaging your entire core through the entry as well. And there's no other way of going around it. You got to do it. If you're loose going in the water, sometimes you can get away with it, but it's not going to be good for your body. And long term, it probably won't be good for your entries either. So now to go over the initial underwater part, we've got this back twister off of 10 meter because it has a really, really good underwater view into the initial pike save. When you're thinking about pike saves and entries for forward, inward, and twisters, you want to pretend like you're going into a 2-liter bottle of soda. Bear with me because you'll understand what I mean in just a second. When you're at the top of a 2-liter bottle of soda, you've got the cap and you've got the small opening, right? And then once you get into the bottle, it becomes wider. You want to pretend as though you're trying to get as long, tight, and compact as possible so that you can fit through that small little opening. From there, as soon as you hit and you get into that more open space, you can then swim your arms and pull yourself deeper into the water. The swim is important for a couple reasons. The two main reasons are that it pulls you into the water faster and it spreads out the air that you're bringing down with you. And that is super important. The reason pulling yourself underwater faster is important is because of the water displacement that you're creating. When you hit the water and you're making that initial opening, you're separating sections of the water that want to cave in on themselves. They want to crash back together, right? So the faster you can get your whole body under means that water won't crash together as violently. It will come back together much more smooth if you're underwater before it meets. But if it meets your body, it's going to start bouncing off of you and then get disrupted by other water. That creates a bigger splash. The spreading of the bubbles underwater that you can see all these people do makes it so that the hole you're making can't cave in on itself also. This is because all of that air that would be in this center section is no longer there to be filled by water. Because if all of that air was still together in this one section, then the water outside of it wants to cave in on it faster. So by spreading out the air, you make it so the surrounding water doesn't crash in on itself faster. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. Now let's talk about how this happens. The timing here is important. Now remember, above the water, we're punching for it. And at that same time, as you extend fully and you're punching for the water, you're also hitting the water. So once you hit the water, that is the cue to break the hands apart and begin swimming. It's immediate. It's so fast. And look at how this first frame that she's underwater, her hands are already apart. That's how fast you have to be swimming. The second big point about the swim is that your elbows need to stay locked out. You're going to see videos of people breaking at the elbows because they're not strong enough to take the entry, or they're not thinking about staying strong through the elbows, that they're not able to get the air to spread out, and that creates a bigger splash. So check out how her arms and her hands are wide, and her arms get to extend all the way out to basically a T. So her hands are as far away from her body as possible. And what is that going to do? It's going to spread out the air. So now let's go over a couple problems you might be having with your swim in Pike-Save. This first one is a classic no swim. Basically, this young man is coming down and you can see, we have space between the head and the arms. So you can already tell the difference here between this guy and the pros. Lock out your shoulders, shrug up, and cover your ears as tightly as possible. All right, second, as he's hitting the water, you can see the elbows are bent and he doesn't swim. And what does that do? Look at how all the bubbles are in one line. All of that air is in this one central area. And like I said before, what's going to happen? It's going to cave in on itself and it's going to create that splash that you can kind of see. Watch that a few times and really commit this to memory. When you hit the water, obviously you have to be tight. And we talked about what that means exactly. But you have to start swimming because otherwise all of that air is going to stay right there and it's not going to disperse. Therefore, you're going to have a bigger splash. You have to get rid of the air. You have to push it to the side. All right, another problem that people have is late pike saves and rolling through the pike save. And what does that mean? Okay, so first of all, I don't know what dive this is, but his hands are entering a little bit low. What I mean by that is his arms are a little bit too far in front of his head. You can see the angle that his arms are making to his body. You really want that to be more lateral and directly out to the side. Usually, when you're swimming in front of your body, not laterally out to the side, you'll end up rolling through the pike save, which is kind of what happens here, but I wouldn't fully attribute it to swimming in front. But as he comes through the pike save, you can see how he doesn't actively fold into a deep pike. It's kind of passive. So his feet push past his initial line, creating a bigger hole and spreading out more air in a bad way, because when you're creating that initial hole, you want it to be as tight as possible, like we talked about. But if your feet are rolling into the water and entering at a different spot than your hands did, you're going to be opening up a bigger hole at the surface, which gives the water more space to crash in on, which can create a bigger splash. And this is where we'll go over a quick thing that one of my coaches taught me when I was young, an acronym called POESTSOL, which I think she made this up, but it makes sense. So what it means is point of entry this side of line. Where you enter, which is right here, where his hands hit, you don't want anything to go to the outside of that line. So right about here, he should be pulling his hips down faster so that his feet can't go past that line that he created. And as you see, he goes past the line, creating a bigger hole and a weaker pike save, which will create a bigger splash. So there you have it. That's pretty nitty gritty right there. Obviously, you need to point your toes. Some people straddle pike save. Some people just do a pike save. They both work fine. As long as you're not straddling before you get underwater, then you're fine. And yeah, that's how the pros do it. And those are some common mistakes that people have when it comes to pike saves. There are definitely some other cases that you might run into that you might be having problems with. But the big ones are the tightness around the head, the lateral swim as early as possible as soon as you hit the water, and making sure that your timing on the pike save is proper. Remember POESTSOL. Point of entry this side of line. That's really going to save a lot of your pike saves in the future, and it's going to teach you how to fold into a pike faster and faster. If you can get an underwater camera or use an iPhone to check yourself every once in a while, or just have an underwater practice day, those are so much fun and you'll enjoy it, and you'll also get a lot out of it. Entries are super important, and I really hope this was able to give you a little bit more in-depth understanding of what entries are and how to do them properly, because I want to see some good rips in the future from you guys. Anyways, I've been rambling a little bit too long. long. If you got anything out of this, please like it, please subscribe, please tell your friends about it. I'm trying to grow this channel. I know I don't post very often, but when I do make these videos, they're for people like you that watch all the way to the end, and I'm super grateful for you. So thank you very much. I'll talk to you guys soon. All right, bye.